Evening all, welcome back to Norwich Talk for another transfer video. Yes, we're back on the grind. It's been quite some time. I genuinely don't know the last time I actually made a video regarding a transfer. I think it might have been Ollie Skip or Todd Cantwell, if you want to class that as a potential transfer video. But we're here today to talk about Ben Godfrey and his potential move to Everton. Various media sources have linked him with a £26 million move to the Toffees, of course. A move that I think would be pretty good for him, to be honest with you. I'm sure he'd be absolutely delighted with it as well, of course. Everton are a club that I think are on the up. Now, they've done some very good business over the summer, but I think the best bit of business they've done recently is probably getting Carlo Ancelotti nailed down to sort of start and kick off his project at Everton. Because anyway, they are a big club. There's sort of no denying that. Not as big as Liverpool, but they are a massive club. And I've seen a few people say they could be contending for top six this season. I definitely agree. You look at some of the business they've done, signing players like Doucoure, who else have they signed? Allan, and Rodriguez, of course. How could I forget? But they've also got a lot of sort of talent there already prior to sort of Ancelotti arriving. You look at players like Richarlison, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and Luca Digne. I'm going to throw in there as well because I do think he's a very good player. But Everton are definitely a club on the up. So this is a pretty big move, or a pretty big potential move for Ben Godfrey to a team that are very big and will probably be contending for top six. So again, in terms of personal ambition, I'm sure Ben Godfrey will be delighted to have gone from the Championship to contending for Europa League, which will be massive for him. And to say he deserves it, I think would be maybe a little bit of an understatement, but at the same time, I am going to look to caveat the idea that Ben Godfrey is all this and that a little bit later in the video. But Ben Godfrey is a really good player for Norwich City, and he's a prime example of how Norwich City have developed a youngster, a guy who started off in the central midfield. He's moved back into centre-back, where I think he'll definitely have a much more successful career if he stays as a centre-back. I do genuinely believe he'll be signed as a centre-back, but there was sort of this identification of the idea that he'll be more successful in that position from Stuart Webber. I remember we spoke to, when I say we, I mean me and Connor spoke to Stuart Webber before Connor interviewed him. I think it must have been the end of January 2019. We've asked him a bit about Ben Godfrey in terms of, is he ready to come into the team? Because at that point he was just sort of coming into it. I think he'd just come into it actually. And everyone was a bit like, right, there's this kid who has played at Shrewsbury in central midfield in, I think it was League 2 or League 1, and he'd come up to the Championship and he's now playing centre-back. So there was a bit of like is he ready for this? And Stuart Webber basically said, if they're not ready, they're not going to play. So Ben Godfrey, again, is just an example of how when you're ready, you play, you smash it, and he has smashed it. And as a centre-back, he's got some really, really good qualities. He's very quick, which I think is really important in the modern game. He's got a really good range of passing, which I think came from the fact that he was a central midfielder. We've seen it time and time again, him spray a ball across the pitch to Jamal Lewis, to Max Aarons. Sadly, we won't see that again now. Ben Godfrey is potentially leaving and Jamal Lewis is gone, of course, but he's got that in his arsenal. He's also just someone who blocks literally everything. The guy's an absolute wall, and for as much as I sometimes like to criticise him for being a bit silly on the ball, he will always give it 110%. He's literally throwing himself and his body on the line, a bit like John Terry did back in the day. But he's such a heart on the sleeve player in terms of the way he just sort of gives everything, he leaves everything on the pitch. There's that infamous clip against Stoke in the 18-19 season where he just tracks back in like the 88th minute of a game, like ridiculously quickly. One, the endurance is ridiculous, but two, the pace sort of matches the level of stupidness or stupidity of just the fact that he got back in general. But he's a fantastic player with a massive engine, and those qualities are going to sort of really shine for him wherever he finds himself in the future, of course. But I think Everton have got potentially a really, really good player on their hands. I do think he's maybe better than Michael Keane. Now, Michael Keane's a player who I don't see every week, of course, but from what I've seen, I genuinely do believe that Ben Godfrey's got a little bit more about him. He's a little bit more interesting to watch, in my personal opinion. We've seen Ben Godfrey playing left back before, so he can sort of do it all, can't he? I do firmly believe that he's a centre back. There was this sort of debate: can we push him forward, get him in a sort of CDM role? No, because his passing is decent. But for me, it's important to stress that it's good for a centre-back, not for a central midfielder. I think if you put him in central midfield, you'd then put a harsher spotlight on his passing. You know, there's absolutely no reason why he couldn't improve it massively, but I think it's more suited to centre-back. And as I sort of have already mentioned, his ability to sort of throw himself in the way of balls, and he's a pretty good one-on-one defender as well. That sort of makes, pardon me, that makes sort of the perfect centre-back in my opinion. Now, I remember Hodgie coming on the pod and he described him as having the traits of a Champions League centre-back. Now, I definitely agree with that statement in terms of he has the traits. They're not Champions League standard yet, of course, which I think got taken a little bit out of context by a few people when he said that. But it's important to remember the traits he has that I've already mentioned are definitely Champions League quality. He is he's a truly very, very good player. I feel like he should have scored a few more goals for Norwich as well. He seems to be one of them people who's always almost scoring a header from a corner as well. Again, his heading as well is pretty good. He seems to jump pretty high. But he is just a truly very, very good player. And there's never been this question of attitude, obviously, with Todd Cantwell and Emi Buendia, which I'm sort of just leaving alone because I don't think there's anything I can really add to that debate. There's never been a waiver of attitude. Now, to mention that quickly, the Todd and Emi thing, Daniel Farke has said if they're not interested in being here, they won't play. And you look at a player like Max Aarons, there's been a bit of praise for him on Twitter, rightly so, in terms of his attitude must be brilliant because, you know, there's been no sort of hint that he potentially wants to leave, with Daniel Farke not excluding him, etc. It's been the same with Ben Godfrey. He's not been dropped. So you have to assume that the attitude has been good, which is good. Yeah, I feel a little bit harsh on Emi and Todd there because I don't know the scenario off by heart, do I? I don't think any of us definitely know. We're going off Daniel Farke's word, and you can sort of choose how much you trust that. But from what we've sort of seen, heard, read, the natural assumption is that his attitude's been good. But yeah, I don't think he leaves too much of a hole in defence, to be honest with you. I was getting a little bit frustrated with him because, to caveat what I was, you know, for all the bigging up of him, I do want to caveat it, sorry, Christ, I can't get my words out, with the fact that sometimes he's a little bit clumsy. He does give the ball away cheaply sometimes, which is frustrating. But again, you sort of have to look at the fact that he's 21, 22 years old, so that's going to happen. It is just a case of, can, say, Carlo Ancelotti sort of get him to not do it anymore in terms of giving the ball away cheaply. There's been times where he's been caught out of position. He loves to get up the pitch, and you can tell that he was a midfielder because he loves to get really high up the pitch. And he sometimes is quite frustrating, but he definitely makes up for it in terms of the fact that he's a very hearty player, and the fact that he just throws himself in the way of everything. And every time I say it, I think of a different block. We saw a few against Bournemouth as well. I think my favourite one is probably not Bournemouth, Spurs away in the FA Cup. I don't know if any of you remember that, when he blocked a shot off the line. I can't remember when it was. I do think it was in the second half of the game, and it's just like, yeah, that's what he does. He's very, very good at it, isn't he? And Everton have got a top player on their hands, definitely. But as I said, I don't think he leaves too much of a gap. You look at Norwich bringing in a player like Ben Gibson. When he was signed, your natural assumption is, right, is Ben Godfrey off? Naturally, we can be like, yeah, probably is now, because Godfrey is a left-sided centre-back, or he has been playing that side for Norwich City. Ben Gibson, a left-sided centre-back, who's not here to sort of sit on the bench, is he? You look at the fee and the price involved in that, £2 million for the season, plus 6 if we go up. You know, it sort of all made sense in my head, to be honest with you, in terms of Ben Gibson and Ben Godfrey. But I'm very keen to know your thoughts in the comments down below, because I think that's probably everything. I'm sad to see him go. Of course, I think I'll be sad to see any of Norwich's assets go. Number 2 of 5, I think we identified there was 5. I think we did. But yeah, number 2 gone. Could be two or three more. Maybe you look at like Emi Buendia, Todd Cantwell being left out. Their futures are being speculated heavily at the moment, and they can't not be after something like that happens, can they? But we'll find out. Time will tell. Time's a beautiful thing. Time will tell. But that's probably just about everything for this video. I'm very keen to know your thoughts in the comments down below on Ben Godfrey, your favourite memory of him. If you think we'll miss him that much, I don't think we will. The team, that is, I'll miss him, of course, because he was a massive part of this revolution at Norwich City, wasn't he? But yeah, top player. Everton have got a top player on their hands. They're a top club. I quite like Everton. I don't know if people like Everton or not. I don't really know what the general consensus is on them. But if you could subscribe to the YouTube channel, that'd be awesome. Leave a like on the video. That'd be very cool and appreciated as well. So until next time, we'll see you again very, very soon.